Okay, so we're going to do question 1 in tutorial 10. Okay, so this is a question about specific text that you have learned in the lecture. So it's pretty straightforward problem where we are given a demand and supply in the market. So where QD is equal to 90 minus 2P and QS is given by P. Okay. So part A is assuming that the government imposes the specific tax of $15 per unit. Further, assume that the sellers will have a legal responsibility for paying the tax. This basically, the tax is imposed on the seller. Okay, so the seller are going to be the one who's going to the government and actually physically paying the tax. How would the supply curve change in this situation? Why? Identify the new equilibrium quantity and price with the new supply curve and the initial demand curve. Okay. All right. So okay. So first of all, I would like to find the initial equilibrium before any tax. Before any tax coming in, okay, and then after that we will see how the equilibrium is going to change when we have a specific tax. Okay, so the original equilibrium is where the QD equal to QS. Okay, so this is the equilibrium before any tax. So if I equate 90 minus 2P equal to QS, which is P, then I got 90 is equal to 3P, and so therefore P is going to be equal to 30. All right, so outside this is P0, which is the original equilibrium. And if I substitute P0 back into either QD or QS, I will be able to find a quantity in equilibrium, which is Q0. Either of them is fine because they are just equal to each other anyway at P0, okay? So therefore Q is going to be equal to 30. All right, so this is the original equilibrium. Now with a specific tax coming in of $15 per unit. How is that going to change the supply curve if the seller will be the one who is who are going to be paying the tax physically to the government? All right, so if we're looking at the quantity supply curve, the supply curve over here. Now for every unit that the firm would like to supply to the market, apart from the price, okay, so apart from the price they would like to charge for themselves, they will have to charge another $15 for every unit that they are selling in order to give that $15 to the government. Okay, so therefore the new supply curve okay is going to be okay, so the price is now that they are charging the consumer is going to be the original price, which is the P over here. Okay, so I would say this is P. So the new say P1. Okay, that is going to be equal to the original price. Okay, plus the $15 now they will have to give to the government. Okay, so whatever they were charging before, now every unit they will have to charge another $15 to give that to the government. So the new price is going to be equal to the old price plus $15 per unit. So that is going to be equal to QS plus 15. All right, so this is the new supply curve. All right, so therefore the new equilibrium is going to be at a point again where QD equal to QS. So if I rearrange this, I get quantity supply equal to P 1 minus 15, okay? And Okay, so QD will have to be equal to QS. And so that is 90 minus 2P, and that is just going to be equal to P minus 15. Okay, so I'll call this is P1, because this is just going to be the price in, just to indicate that this is the price after tax. Okay, so I'll call this P1. And this is the price that the firm is going to charge the consumer, which is the price that the consumer will have to pay. Okay. All right, so that is, so if I rearrange this, I'll get 90 plus 15 is going to be equal to 3 P1. And so therefore is 105 equal to 3 P1. And so P1 is going to be equal to 35. All right, so the new price is going to be equal to 35. And so what is going to be the new equilibrium? So if I substitute the price P1, okay, into either the demand or the supply, so QS or QD, I'll find that the total quantities I'll call is Q1, which is the quantity after the tax, okay, it's going to be equal. So in either the quantity supply or quantity demand, either the new supply curve, remember, okay, or, okay, so I'll call this is, remember, so this is, I'll call QS1 or QS2 to just differentiate from the original QD and QS, okay. Okay, so into either QD, so QD remain the same, or QS1. Okay, so I'll call this is QS1. QS1. Maybe I'll just leave it. Okay, so I'll get Q1, which is the quantity after tax. So if you substitute 35 into either the new supply curve or the old original quantity demand, I will find that the quantity equal to 20. Okay. Okay, so part B asking you who bears the incident of tax. Okay, so basically we try to see, so physically the seller is going to be the one who's taking the $15 to the government, but effectively who is actually sharing the tax? Is that paid purely by the seller, or the buyers is going to be sharing a part of it? Okay, so in order to see that, the easiest way is to compare to the original price. Okay, now if looking back at the original equilibrium before any tax, we can see that the price is 30. Okay, so I'll say before tax. Okay, P0 is 30. Oh, sorry, 30. Okay, now remember, this is the price that that the firm is charging the consumer. So it's basically the price paid by the consumer. Okay, and receive and earn by the firms. Remember, this is the case where the firms do not need to pay any tax. Whatever they receive from the consumer, they are going to keep that for themselves. Okay, so the consumer is paying $30 and the firm is receiving or earning a $30. Okay, now what happened after tax? So after tax, now the price P1 we found that it's equal to 35. Okay, so with this 35, so this is the price that the firm is charging the consumer. Okay, so this is the price that paid by the consumers. Okay, Now, this is also the price received by the firms. However, do the firm keep all of this? No, the firm will have to use $15 from this and pay that to the government. Okay, so this is the price paid by the consumer. Okay, however, the firms will have to pay, okay, so $15 to the government, okay, as a tax, okay, so the amount earned, okay, so the firms only get to keep or to earn basically $20. Okay, so they receive 35 from the consumer, however, they pay 15 to the government, so they only earn 20. Right, so if we compare the before tax and the after tax, we can see that the consumer is actually paying $5 more than before. Okay, so before they paid 30, now they pay 35. All right, so consumers, okay, they actually pay $5 more. How about the producer, or how about the firms? The firm is actually, so before they receive $30, okay? And now they receive, they earn, so before they earn or they keep $30. Now they only keep $20, okay? So basically the firms earn $10 less, okay? Alright, so as you can see from here, even though the firms are the one who actually physically go into the tax office and pay the tax, effectively the consumer is paying $5 of it, and the firm is actually only paying $10. Okay, so compared to the before tax, they are earning $10 less than before. Basically, that they are contributing $10 to the tax, and the consumer is contributing $5 to the tax, and that $15 is going to go to the government. Okay, so therefore the incidence of tax is shared. Okay, is shared between the buyers and the seller. Okay, between the buyers and the sellers or the firms. Okay, so each of them is going to be paying a little bit of the tax. In this case, the firms are paying more. Okay, they're earning less, $10 less, while the consumer is only paying $5 more. Okay, so the total is $15 that is going to the government. All right.
Okay, so Patsy is asking you to calculate how many units are exchanged in equilibrium, how much revenue is raised by the tax, and show that on a diagram. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to draw a diagram first, and then from there it should be very straightforward to see the revenue that the government can collect from the tax. Okay. Okay, so I got just a normal diagram where alright, so on the vertical I will have dollars, and on a horizontal it's just going to be the quantity Q, and I got 0 over here. Okay, so first of all I'm going to draw the demand function QD, which is equal to 90 minus 2P. Okay, so remember Q is on a horizontal, so this is the horizontal variable and P is the vertical variable. Alright, so therefore the horizontal intercept is going to be where, okay, so to vertical intercept first. So vertical intercept is going to be where I make Q equal to 0. Okay, so when QD equal to 0, then solving this equation, I'll get P equal to 45, and that is going to be the vertical intercept. Okay, so I'll just say it's just the point over here. And the horizontal intercept is where I make P equal to 0, right? And so in this case, I will find that Q equal to 90, and that is going to be the horizontal intercept. I will say it's going to be here. So if I use a line, connect these 2 points together, then I'll get a demand curve. Okay, so this is the demand curve D. All right, so I got QS is just going to be equal to P. So basically, horizontal and vertical intercept is just going to be equal to 0, and it's going through the origin. Okay, so it's just an upward sloping line going through the origin with a slope of 1. So what I want to do is I'm just going to draw a line like this. Okay, so this is my supply curve, and so therefore this is going to be my equilibrium before any tax, right? So we found earlier before any tax, quantity in equilibrium Q 0 is equal to 30. Okay, and the price in equilibrium P0 is going to be equal to 30 as well. Okay, now after tax, then we got the new supply curve, which is over here. Okay, so the new supply curve is going up over here. So I got QS. Okay, equal to P minus 15. All right, or P equal to QS plus 15. So the demand curve remained the same. However, the supply curve is now going to be parallel to the original one. However, having a vertical intercept of 15. Okay, so if you make Q equal to 0, you find out P equal to 15, and that is basically the vertical intercept. Okay, so what I got over here is I got the new quantity supply, so the new supply curve, okay, is QS equal to P plus 15. Sorry, P equal to QS. Okay, so vertical intercept is 0, P equal to 15, so that is just going to be half of these. Okay, and so it's just parallel to the original one because it's having the same slope of 1. So if I draw a parallel line to the supply curve and it's having a vertical intercept at 15, then I'll get something like this. Okay, so this is my new supply S1, and the demand curve remained the same because there isn't anything changed to the demand curve. Okay, so the gap over here between the two lines is going to be the amount tax per unit. Okay, which is basically the $15. Okay, so the gap between the two lines is basically the amount tax per unit. All right, so this is my new equilibrium, which is over here. So we know that the new equilibrium quantity Q1 is equal to 20, and the new price over here is basically equal to P1 equal to 35. Okay, so that is the new price that the firms is charging the consumer. All right, so how many units are exchanged in equilibrium? We know that the new equilibrium is where Q1 equal to 20. Okay, so Q1 equal to 20, exchange in equilibrium. Okay, and what is going to be the tax revenue? Now, so as you can see from here, P1 is the price that the consumer is going to pay. Okay, however, what the supplier is receiving is only it's only $20. Okay, so it's basically now here. Okay, so this is I'll call PS equal to 20. Okay, which is what the supplier is receiving or is getting or is earning after tax. So the gap between the 35 and the 20 is basically the $15 of tax that the firms will have to go to the government and pay. Okay, so the gap over here is basically the amount tax. Okay, Right, so I'll say the gap over there is the amount tax per unit, which is $50. Okay, and so if, in order to find the tax revenue, you will just have to multiply the tax per unit by the total amount or the total unit that are exchanged in equilibrium. Okay, so therefore the tax revenue is just going to be the $15 per unit multiplied by the total quantity exchange in the market, which is 20, and that is going to be equal to 300. Okay, so in terms of a diagram, it's just going to be the little rectangle over here. Okay, so that's the so if I want to highlight this in yellow, it's going to be the rectangle by the tax per unit multiplied by the total quantity, which is 20 units in the market. Okay, all right, so this is the tax revenue. Okay, so this is the total tax revenue that the government is going to receive. Okay, so part D is asking you to find the consumer surplus, producer surplus following the text and show both of these on a diagram. Okay, so we know that consumer surplus is basically the area, okay, so above the price, okay, paid by the consumers, okay, and below the demand curve. Okay, so it's basically the difference between the consumer's willingness to pay, which is represented by the demand curve, and the price they would have actually to pay. Okay, so therefore it's just going to be the area, so the price that consumer are paying is $35, okay, which is here, and they are buying 20 units, and this is the demand curve. So basically the consumer surplus is just going to be the little triangle on top over here, bounded by the demand curve and the price that the consumer will have to pay. Okay, so that's just the little triangle up there, and this is the consumer surplus. Okay, so to calculate that little triangle over there, it's just going to be okay, half times the high, which is the difference between 45 and 35, so that's 10, and multiply by the total quantity sold in the market, which is 20. Okay, so it's 45 minus 35 times 20. So that's 200 divided by 2. And so that is going to give me 100. Okay.
And producer surplus 1, which is the producer surplus after tax. Now remember, producer surplus is the area, okay, above the supply curve, okay, and below the price received or basically earned, remember, earned or kept by the firms. Okay, so in this case, as you can see, the firm only gets to keep $20. Okay, so we're using that price. It's not a 35. Okay, the firms only get to keep, or the firms only earns $20. So that is the price that we are using, and above the supply curve, which is the original supply curve. Okay, now we do not use the new supply curve, because that is just the supply curve taking into the fact that into account the fact that the firm will have to go to the government to pay the $15 of tax. But what we sort of producer surplus is basically the area that the producers or the firms get to keep, okay, the surplus that they get to keep. So basically, we are talking about the original supply without any, after they already pay all the tax to the government. Okay, so the price they actually receive is $20, and the effective supply curve is the original one. It's not the new one. Okay, so therefore, the producer surplus is going to be the little bottom triangle over here. Okay, above the supply curve, original supply curve, and below the price that the firm is actually getting to keep. Okay, so that area over there is the producer surplus one, which is the producer surplus after tax. Okay, so again, the question doesn't ask you to calculate, but I'll do anyway. Okay, so the triangle, so the high over here is 20 minus 0, and the horizontal width is 20. So 20 times 2400 divided by 2 is 200. Okay. All right. And so part A asking you, what is the deadweight loss or the efficiency loss associated with the tax? Describe what is that meant by this and why the tax generating a deadweight loss. Okay, so as you can see, deadweight loss is happening because the economy is producing less than the socially optimal level of output. Okay, so as you can see, originally the economy is producing over here at quantity Q equal to 30. Now after tax, the firms is only producing Q equal to 20. Okay, so they are producing less than the optimal level of output that they could have produced without tax. Okay, so because of this fact, then it's creating a deadweight loss, which is basically a little triangle over here on the right hand side, which is caused by the reductions in the production from Q0 to Q1. Okay, so as you can see, from Q1 to Q0, okay, effectively, any quantity between Q1 and Q0, the demand curve is above the supply or the original supply curve. Okay, so that basically means that the consumer's willingness to pay is higher than what it actually costs the firm to produce the output. Okay, so if we do not talk about the tax, okay, so ignore the tax. Just consider what it costs its real cost the firm to produce, which is the original supply curve and the demand curve. And for any quantity between Q1 and Q0, as you can see, the demand curve is above the supply curve. Okay, so for example, this point over here where this is the demand, this is the supply. So demand is above supply means that the consumer's willingness to pay for that level of output is higher than what it actually costs the firm to produce that level of output. Now, if that is the case, then it's optimal for the economy to produce that level of output. Okay. However, because of the tax, then it increase the basically the cost per unit. It's not the cost per unit, but increase the price per unit that the firm will have to charge, and that is the reason why the consumer is willing to consume less, because now they will have to pay more. Okay, so that is reducing the level of output under the optimal level of output. Okay, so this is the socially, all right, optimal level of output. Okay, so deadweight loss happens, okay, because the firms or I say because output lower than, okay, the socially optimal level after tax. Okay. Okay, so for any output from Q1 to Q0, demand is above the supply. Okay, implying that consumers' willingness to pay is higher than the cost to produce that output. Okay, so it's basically socially optimal to produce more, but because of the tax, then it's increased the price that the firms are charging consumer, and so therefore the consumer are reducing their consumption. Okay, so it's reduced the level of output. Okay, however, the tax increases the price, which reduce consumers okay, it's reduce the quantity. Okay, demanded, and so it's reduced the equilibrium quantity to Q1. Okay, so that is the reason why the dead weight loss is happening. And so as you can see, it's just basically the little triangle over here. Okay, that is the dead weight loss, because that is the reductions in the output from Q0 to Q1 that is not actually being produced in the economy, even though it should be produced in order to maximize the social welfare. Okay, so therefore the dead weight loss is just going to be the little triangle there. So to calculate this little triangle, it's just going to be half of the height multiplied by the run. Okay, so that's just half of 30 minus 20, so that will give you the height over here. Okay, give you this, and multiply by the horizontal amount, which is 15, okay, which is the amount tax. So basically 35 minus 20, which is 15, okay. So that is half of 10 minus 15, so it's 150, so that's 75. Okay, so the dead weight loss in this economy is equal to 75. Okay, so part F is asking you, if now the tax is imposed on the buyers, how would your answers to part A's and E's are going to be different? Okay, so now if the buyers are the one who are actually going to the government office and pay the tax, how is that going to be different? Okay, so we know that, so this is the case where buyer, okay, pay the tax. Okay, so now, so the supply curve is going to remain the same, okay, because the firms are not doing anything different, okay, so therefore QS is still going to be equal to P, so that is the same. So I'll call this is PS, which is the price received or earned by the seller, okay. Now, if the seller is receiving PS, then the consumer actually have to pay PS plus the amount tax, okay, because they will have to give $15 to go to the government, okay. So if PS is the price, okay, received by the sellers, okay, or the firms, or owned by the firms, then the buyers will actually have to pay PS, and plus $15 per unit for tax. Okay, so this $15 will go to the government and PS is going to go to the firm. All right. So therefore, the new demand curve for the buyers. So it's going to be the new price that the buyer will have to pay. Okay, so it's going to be QD equal to 90 minus 2P. Okay, so that is going to be, so this is the price that the consumer will have to pay, okay, or the buyer will have to pay. So of course PD, okay, and so PD is actually equal to PS plus 15, okay, so that is 90 minus 2 PS plus 15. Right, so the price paid by the consumer is actually equal to the price received or earned by the seller plus the $15 that the buyers will have to go to the government, to take to the government to pay the tax. Okay, so if I rearrange, expand and simplify this, I get 90 minus 2 PS minus 30, so that is going to be 60 minus 2 PS. Okay. So the new equilibrium in this case is just going to be again where quantity QS equal to quantity QD. So I got PS is equal to 60 minus 2 PS. And so therefore 3 PS is equal to 60. And so PS is equal to 20. Okay? So in equilibrium, the supplier is going to receive $20. And so if you compare that to the previous result, you'll see that it's exactly the same thing. Okay, the seller received $20. So that's the same. Okay. All right. So the price paid by the buyer, so PD, is actually PS plus 15. Okay. So it's 20 plus 15. So the buyers will actually have to pay $35. Effectively. And if you compare to the previous result, it's exactly the same. Okay, so as you can see before, here the buyer is paying 35. Okay, so it's the same result. And the $15 difference is going to the government. Okay, and so if I substitute these prices into the quantity added and demand and supply, so if I substitute P S back into either the QD or QS, it doesn't matter. Then I'll find that Q, for example, I substitute back in QD, then I'll get Q star is equal to 90, or if I sub into QS, that's easier. Okay, so and PS is 20. If I sub that into here, the supply curve, I get QS equal to 20. Okay, and again, if you compare to the previous result, the quantity in equilibrium after tax is 20, so it's exactly the same. Okay, so because the quantity is the same, the prices are the same, everything else is exactly the same. Okay.
Okay, so the only thing, the only difference is how we show it on a diagram. Okay, so as you can see, everything else is the same. However, if I want to do a diagram to show the fact that the consumer will actually have to be the ones who are paying tax to the government, then the diagram is going to be a little bit different in the way that we draw it. However, all of the results are remaining the same. Okay, so I got Q over here, got 0 over here. So again, I will just have original demand curve where, so that is the old, okay, demand curve where Q D is equal to 90 minus 2P. Okay, so as before, we already draw, it is just going to be a downward sloping straight line. Okay, with a horizontal intercept of 90 and the vertical intercept of 45. Okay, so this is original demand curve D. Now, so I also got a supply curve, which is going to be just a straight line going through the origin with slope of 1. Okay, so that's the original supply curve QS equal to P. Right, so again, this is just the original equilibrium where quantity Q0 equal to 30 and original equilibrium price P0 equal to 30. Okay, now if I got the tax imposed on the buyer, then the new demand curve, as we derived earlier, is just going to be equal to, okay, so QD is just equal to 60 minus 2 PS. Okay, so remember that the supply curve remained the same. Okay, so the price in the market that we want to show over here is basically the QS. Okay, so the new demand curve is, okay, so P equal to, sorry, I just have to run that over here. Okay, so I got QD equal to 60. A minus 2 PS. Okay, so basically on the diagram, I just have the quantity. Okay, so the vertical intercept for this one is where I put Q D equal to 0. So therefore, P is going to be equal to 30, which is over here. Okay, and the horizontal intercept is where I put I put P equal to 0, and so therefore Q is going to be equal to 60. And so that would just be somewhere around here. Okay, so if I connect these 2 points together, I will get another straight line, and it should be, it's not very precise, but it should just be parallel to the original demand curve because it's having the same slope, as you can see. Okay, so this will be 60 over here, okay? And so this is the new demand curve, I will say D1. So it's going to cut the new supply curve at this new equilibrium over here. And so again, this quantity is Q1 equal to 20. And this is the price, remember this is the price PS that the supplier is going to receive from the buyer, okay? So that it's just going to be equal to 20. Okay, and that is just the same as before where the supplier is receiving $20. Now what the consumer will have actually to pay is equal to the price they pay to the supplier plus the $15 of tax they will have to pay to the government. Okay, so 20 plus 15 is going to be 35, and so that it's just going to be going up all the way here. So this is the P that the consumer will have to pay, and that is equal to 35. Okay, so this is PD, which is the price consumer will have to pay. Okay, so therefore, again, we want to show consumer surplus, producer surplus, that way loss, and the tax revenue. So it's exactly the same diagram as before. Consumer surplus is now going to be just a little triangle over here again, okay, which is about the price consumer will have to pay, which is 35 after tax, remember? Okay, so they have to pay $20 to the supplier, and and $15 to the government. Okay, so this is the consumer surplus. Okay, now again, producer surplus is going to be the area below the price received by the supplier, which is 20 in this case, okay, and above the supply curve. So that it's just going to be a little bottom triangle over here. Okay, so it's exactly the same as before. Okay, so this is the producer surplus. All right, again, the tax revenue is going to be the little rectangle over here. So the gap between the price paid by the supplier, paid by the consumer and received by the supplier is going to be the tax per unit. And you multiply by the total units sold in the market, you'll be able to find the total tax revenue to the government. Okay, so this is the tax revenue. Okay, and again, the deadweight loss is just going to be the little triangle over here on the right hand side. Okay, so this is the deadweight loss. Okay, so exactly the same as before, so nothing changed whether the tax is imposed on the consumer or on the buyers. Okay, the only thing difference is who is going to be physically going to the tax office to pay the tax, but effectively they share the tax, they share the incidence of tax in the same way. Doesn't matter who is paying the tax physically. Okay.